So we'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are gathered to live, learn and work. We also want to pay our respects to elders, past, present and emerging. We would like to extend that respect to other Indigenous Australians who are present today. So GDG Melbourne, we have a code of conduct. We need to be respectful, and if you see if there's an issue or a concern, make sure you let us know and speak up. And if you want to know more information, you can look at the link there. So we have a zero tolerance policy, and that applies to harassment of any kind, but not limited to neurodiversity, race, color, national origin, gender identity, gender expression, sexual orientation, age, body size, disabilities, appearance, religion, pregnancy, military status, and social demographic. We have a support team. So if you are part of the support team, please raise your hand. That's Susie, Andres, Mike, and Lovey. So our agenda tonight is as presented, and our first speaker is Jess. Oh yeah, sorry. I also want to thank NAB as well for the venue, Google for sponsoring. I also have swag for everyone as well. We've got charging pads, diaries, we've got coloring pencils and drawing pads, pens, drawstring bags. So how to get this, you just need to fill out the survey, which is at the end. We also have some questions, trivial questions during our break, and that's also a chance for you to win our gift cards. So Jess.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jess, and let me just start by saying I'm really pretty nervous doing this. I haven't done public speaking in like uni days, maybe the last one, so bear with me. The topic I'm about to discuss today is quite close to my heart, given that I personally experience it and is definitely continually experiencing it. To introduce my topic, let me do a quick social experiment. So bear with me. To start, I'm requesting everyone here in the venue to close their eyes. And then, if your answer to my question is a yes, kindly raise your hand. And then for those at home, you can do the raise hand reaction. So if your answer to this question is a yes, please raise your hand. Have I ever questioned myself if I'm good enough to finish the course I'm studying or the job I'm in right now? Raise your hand. Oh, the fun part is if your hand is raised, please keep it raised, and then now open your eyes. Look around you. Almost everyone is raising their hand. Now, perhaps let's do another round because you might think, nah, it's just a fluke. She just got lucky. It's a random question. So close your eyes again and then raise your hand if you've ever downplayed an achievement. Say you've released like an amazing app, getting wonderful reviews in the app store, and then you say, nah, I just got lucky. It's nothing. Yeah? Give your hand raised and then open it. Everyone. So, yes. Imposter syndrome is a common thing. As we've seen from our little social experiment, it excuses no one. It doesn't discriminate. But what exactly is imposter syndrome? Imposter syndrome goes by different names, such as imposter phenomenon, fraud syndrome, perceived fraudulence, or imposter experience, which describes high achieving individuals who, despite their objective successes, fail to internalize their accomplishments and have persistent self doubt and fear of being exposed as a fraud or imposter. Um, People with imposter syndrome struggle with accurately attributing their performance to their actual competence. For example, they attribute successes to external factors such as luck or receiving help from others, and attribute setbacks as evidence of their professional inadequacy. Yeah, sad part. Um, Now that we've established a definition of this phenomenon and that we've most likely experienced this ourselves, let me share a few ways I handle the situation when it arises. I'll be outlining 5 things, and then hopefully you get to take away something from out of it. Cool. So the first one is acknowledging that it's normal to experience this. Those of us who've experienced imposter syndrome often feels that we're the only ones feeling this way, but reality is very different. Um, I remember in one of our conversations with our executives, she was asked if your younger self were given an advice, what would it be? And she was like, um, everyone experiences imposter syndrome. So just go with it because everyone does. So next time you experience this feeling, just acknowledge it and take it as an opportunity to learn and grow. Just remember, you got this. And then, like I've mentioned, even if she's an executive, I mean, it can happen at any stage, no matter where you are at the start of your career or even at the peak of your career. It just happens. The second one is being your inner sage. So I recently finished this 3-week resilience program by Paul Taylor. And one of my key takeaways from that is being your inner sage. So the idea is we all have 2 versions of ourselves. One that is a little bit crap, and which we call the gremlins. So these are those negative self-talk, overthinking, victim mentality, worry, anxiety, external locus of control. And this is the version of you that is holding you back. Then the other character is the best version of yourself, which, if we take from the Stoic philosophers, they refer to this as your inner sage. So the idea is to visualize your inner sage when you need to be your best self. Ideally, you would do it first thing in the morning, before work, before meetings, and especially when you have had a hard day. I got post-it notes in my bathroom with those positive affirmations. I find that it works for me. And then if you ask me if I consulted my inner sage prior to this talk, yeah, you bet I did. The third one is finding a mentor, a coach, or a sponsor. Um, to fight imposter syndrome, try to actively improve your hard skills and soft skills. That way, whenever that little voice in your head whispers that you're not good enough at something, you can whisper back that you're in the process of getting better. A great way to do that is to find a mentor. Look for someone in your company or your field who can give you practical advice and support. This might be a senior leader or a leader at another company that you look up to. Um, Personally, I've been lucky to have people leaders who are truly supportive and have enabled me to grow in my field. My advice is to use that one-on-one sessions to learn from them. Ask them questions, how they navigated their careers, how they dealt with difficult situations. The possibilities are endless. And if you don't have regular catch-ups, ask for one. You never know what you could get out of those sessions. And as it ties to that, the fourth one is becoming a mentor yourself. This one I can definitely vouch for. When I volunteered at NAB to become a mentor to one of our interns, I didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't even know what I wanted to get out of it. But I got more than what I bargained for. I learned a lot from her and her journey. A mentor-mentee relationship is a two-way street. As much as they learn from you, you also learn from them. Sharing experiences can really give you a different perspective. And also, you don't have to wait to become a senior or an executive. You can be at any stage and be a mentor to someone. As long as you have life experiences to share, you're good to go. The last one, and probably the hardest one, is avoiding comparing yourself to others. This is a tough one, and I'm still actively working on it. It's so easy for us to compare ourselves with others. And when we do, we normally do it with the not good enough gremlin. We always see it as if they are better than us, or we are not good enough compared to our peers. But that's not how it should go. We should reframe our mind and see it more as what I could learn from them, from my colleagues, from my peers. I remember having a manager in the past whereby her way of motivating me was to compare me with someone else. She said something like, "Look at how so and so does things." I know her intention was for me to learn from that other person. But in that situation, I felt bad about it. I took it as I'm not good enough compared to the other person. But if I shifted the way I saw it and frame it as what can I learn from her, then maybe I wouldn't have felt bad about it. And that should be how we navigate our workplaces. Don't treat your colleagues as competitions. Collaborate with them. You don't know what you might learn from them. Adapt that learner's mindset. And as part of my prep for this presentation, I even asked a colleague to review my presentation, and she gave me a few advice, and those advice are taken into account and have become part of this presentation. So that's a good way of going about it. And as we run our own race, we should remember that the goal is not perfection. It's all about continuous improvement. As long as we're progressing, we're doing well. Let's not aim for perfection. Instead, adapt that agile concept of continuous improvement and just keep on progressing. Keep ourselves to get better and better. So that's it for me now. If you have any questions, would be happy to have a chat afterwards. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jess. Thank you, everyone. Now we're going to have our next presenter. She's online, so just give us 2 minutes and we're just going to switch over.
folks, can you all see me? Can you hear me?
Anita, you're on.
Yes, can you see me and hear me?
We can't see you though, but we can definitely hear you.
Goodness, I actually ran this through with Susie yesterday, but guess what? Technology always breaks down when you need it the most. Let me kind of sign out and sign in again.
All right, I'll leave this in your hands. Thanks. Benita, are you there? Yeah. Are you ready to start? Are you on mute, Benita?
Perfect. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Awesome. Okay. That's why, right? The team is progress, not perfection. I really ran through this with Susie yesterday, but look at this. Okay. Hi everyone. Welcome to Women Tech Makers International Women's Day. I'm Benita. I'm from Google. So usually when I tell people I'm from Google, people ask, "Oh, Benita, are you a software engineer?" Recently, I even had a friend's child that asked me, "Hey, Auntie Benita, are you the one that answers all the questions when I search in Google?" No, I'm not any of these. Unfortunately, I can't code and my technology skills are a little bit limited. I'm actually a legal counsel with Google. And the next question that I get from by a lot of people when I say that is that, "Oh, you must be an IP lawyer. Do you have a technology background?" And I'm like, "Oh, sorry guys. Actually, I'm an infrastructure and energy lawyer. And my precise role in Google is that I do data center development. So I actually decided to wear my data center t-shirt just to show you guys today. Oops, can you see? Oops. Oh no, it's blocked me. Yes, okay. Yeah. So that's the shirt of the data center development team. And today, the focus of my session is really to share with everyone here about how someone who perhaps doesn't really fit into the stereotypical textbook image of a tech employee make the switch from non-tech to tech. It's not meant to be a prescriptive session. It's not meant to give you a definitive roadmap. But what I really want to do is to give you some ideas and possibilities of how you could channel your knowledge, experience, and strengths in what I consider to be a forefront industry for human development. So, Izzy, the next slide, please. Yes, thank you. So this is my career journey thus far. I went to law school. I trained as a lawyer. I worked in a big four local law firm. I worked in an international law firm. And then I joined Google. So this is the part when people start asking me, "Oh, how did this happen? Haven't you always sort of been a lawyer? Why did this happen?" Well, there's really a lot that I can cover about this career journey that will really go beyond 15 minutes. And I really want to keep some time for Q&A. So I am going to focus on three main ideas that have shaped my career journey. And I hope that you'll find this useful. So see the next slide, please. So the first thing I want to emphasize, right, is that tech is more than tech careers. So maybe we just think about what you did today on your mobile phone or your laptop. I'm sure some of you have used online search. Hopefully it's Google. I'm sure some of you have used social media, Facebook, Twitter, or maybe for the younger ones, right? Yeah, you'll be using TikTok nowadays. I'm old, like the dinosaurs. And some of you may have been on Netflix watching streaming movies. And all this shows really how much of an impact tech has on people's lives. And if you were to ask me, the pandemic has accelerated tech in our lives. and it's not going away. What this means is that tech companies are expanding. Whole teams are actually required to make a company work. You need people to recruit employees. You need marketing professionals to elevate the hardware to the next level. You need translators to make the services relevant in jurisdictions worldwide. I know that the audience here today comes from a variety of backgrounds, and you might think this sounds quite incredible, but due to the wide ambit of tech companies, I can pretty much confidently say that there is a role for you in the tech industry out there that matches what you can bring to the table. Just to give you a real life example, right? It was only during the pandemic when, even though I've been a Google employee for some time, I only realized that there was this particular role in Google called a food ethnographer. So apparently what the people in that role do is that they study the relationship between humans and food, and their research goes into developing the in-house food program for Google, which is part of our well-being banner. So there you have it, right? Don't ever feel that, oh, my role is too niche, my background is such a specialized like sub area. There's no role for me in tech. Don't ever exclude, possible opportunities because of that, thought in your mind. Next slide, please, Susie. And the next thought I wanted to also share with you is to maybe think a little bit more about how tech culture works like versus non-tech culture. So as you all know, I came from a law firm background, and so that's the basis of comparison I had. But also think about your person, about in a way like the direct environment that some of you are maybe working in, or the area of specialization you're focusing in on your university. So what are some things I find really unique about tech culture? So firstly, law firms, they tend to be very traditional. They are perhaps the last bastions of conservatism on many fronts. Um, and lawyers are really known to be risk averse, right? If there's something that works, if it's a great precedent, why are you changing it? That's what people think. And sometimes that risk averse mentality reflects itself in the culture and the work behavior. As incredulous as this sounds, during my private practice these days, I've actually met people who can't use Microsoft Word ably. We're not talking about like fancy kind of programs or coding. This is like Microsoft Word we are talking about here. And what they would do would be to basically write the comments on paper and ask the secretary to type it in so that we could email the soft copy to clients, right? A very inefficient process. So of course, in tech companies, it's the other way around. Change is expected, is embraced. A lot of the times, teams will have to reorganize, projects will have to restructure to suit business goals that are rapidly changing. And for that reason, experimentation and learning is encouraged. Failure is really seen as part of the process. And I think the ancillary point to this is that when you join the tech industry, a lot of the work you do is actually out there in the frontier. You will work on things that you never really know existed. Perhaps the project they are working on today may be superseded by a project next year just because the pace is so quick. And for that reason, general cognitive skills, the ability to thrive in ambiguity are all very heavily prized in the tech industry. Another interesting nugget I would like to share, particularly with folks who perhaps specialize in areas or come from industries that are very heavily female dominated, perhaps like social work or early school education. I think it's also very important to be upfront with you is that the reality of tech is that it still remains heavily male dominated. We all know that increasingly companies realize and they are wising up to the fact that diversity is not just a means of improving the public face of the company, but it is a fundamental driver to a company's business success and performance. Having said that, until gender parity is reached in the tech industry, like it or not, when you as a woman join the tech industry, what we say, what we do, even our presence itself, our existence, has a significant impact on the future of women in that team, that company, and that role. And if you were to make that jump into tech, I would really encourage you to play an active role in creating a diverse community. Be a mentor, be a speaker like this, and be that important change that you can to your team and your company. So at the next slide, please. And I know so far in this session, we'll be talking a lot about like practicalities, what exactly is out there. And my understanding is that a lot of you here are undergraduates. I know you must be thinking about a career development. How am I going to shape my path? What are the credentials I need? Who are the people I need to meet? And I really just want to leave this session like on a very strong, encouraging note that consider the fact that the job that best fits you may not even exist today. We know that the world evolves, and arguably the world is evolving even faster than it has ever been. Jobs that exist today, such as social media influencer, they were never heard of 20 years ago. Jobs may actually become less relevant or nullified due to technological improvements. Let's think about how renewable energy is taking the front stage. If you are only going to look at oil and gas and coal-fired, power plant projects, they will soon become like the dinosaur eventually. And really, for me, when I think about the theme of this year's International Women's Day of progress, not of perfection, what really resonates with me is keeping our minds open to the possibility in front of us, being sensitive to the developments in the world, taking incremental steps even when sometimes we are unsure. Keep your passions alive, be patient, and as incredible it might sound, your time will eventually come. When it does, grab it with all your might and don't let it go. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Benita. We do have a few people in the audience. Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
Hi, Benita.
Hi.
My name is Katie. I'm currently a nurse and I'm trying to transition into tech. I guess it's a bit of a two-parter. You mentioned that there is a job for everyone, and you mentioned your law background. And I guess one part, I'm currently taking a boot camp on web development, which I'm really enjoying. But I guess if there was anything I didn't know about in regards to how healthcare can relate to tech, I would love to hear about it. And then the second question is, I guess, how can I make myself more marketable to an employer as someone who has no tech background whatsoever? But I'm working on it.
Thanks so much, Katie, for your questions. It's actually really amazing for me to hear that the fact that you are in healthcare, because personally for me, I see healthcare as a really huge industry that is going to become sort of like one of the next developing industries in tech. We know about technology such as the Fitbit watches. Yeah, as you all know, Google acquired Fitbit some time back ago, and we are talking a lot about AI and how it can be used in medical advances and advancements. So honestly, when you tell me you come from a healthcare background, I would say, wow, that's perfect. Honestly, I think you are a real good candidate for a lot of the companies out there. And secondly, you mentioned what would be a good way to kind of like advance your career in tech. I think I'm not sure where you are now. Are you studying or are you working currently? Where are you in your career?
I'm currently an associate nurse unit manager. So yeah, in the middle of my career.
That's really good to know. I think what you could do is to continue capitalizing on those strengths that you have in your current role and profession, but at the same time, I would say develop sort of like complementary skills. I know you mentioned that you're doing web kind of development, and I think it's also great to sometimes look at the career pages of, for instance, teams like Google Health. What kind of skill sets are they looking for? Definitely for someone like you and me, where we don't come from tech grounds, when tech companies hire us, they need to feel confident that someone coming into this role is basically coming into the role with a lot of experience and able to provide thought leadership. So that's actually quite different, for instance, when Google recruits, let's say, a software engineer, because they will think more about hiring people fresh from universities and training them. But when they look at people like us from non-tech backgrounds, your non-tech experience is very important. And on top of that, the things that are huge value adds will be, for instance, like the courses they're doing, those complementary courses, and like what I mentioned earlier, general cognitive ability, the your strength and your ability to actually thrive in ambiguous environments. I think those are the things that will really help you stand out and be a great candidate.
Thank you so much, Benita. We've also got another question here.
Hi, Benita. It was nice listening to you. Yeah, actually, I just have a question. Like, I'm from electronics background, but I want to shift to data analyst. So, what sort of certification will help me to secure a job in that field, and like where to start? So that's my question. Thank you.
Well, to be honest, right, I'll be honest with you, I'm stumped because I know nothing about electronics and I know nothing about data analysis. But I think what could sort of like help you a little bit more is that for that there are certain, what I will say, job fairs and like career path sites which you can click through. Like I work in data centers specifically, right? So if that's something that up your alley, I can show you something similar for what we are doing in the data center industry, where it basically shows you what are the skills you have and what kind of jobs you can actually branch out for those skills. I am frankly not very sure about what the skill set and path will look for your career path, but I think one place to start would be to Google it, try and find such ladder kind of sites, and also maybe to click on some of like the career pages, because typically they will state the kind of skill sets that are relevant, and and a lot of the times I feel that sometimes even though we don't really have the primary degree that is directly relevant to the course, what I've seen a lot of people do nowadays is that people are more open to online learning like Coursera, like Google Skills certificates, and just by actually enrolling in them and getting some insights to them, sometimes it's not even just like the skills that you get equipped with when doing the course, but actually the people who are also doing that course, and just that cross-pollination of ideas and just reaching out to someone who is already in that field helps a lot in helping you get that leg in the door.
Thank you so much, Benita. Can everyone please give Benita a round of applause?
Thanks, everyone.
So now we're going to have a break, and then we're going to come back at 7:20 for 2 more presentations. Thank you. Okay, so we're all on break now, and there's some questions. We've got 3 trivial questions. So if you get the right answer and you post it on Slack, you win a gift card. Okay, the answer must be on Slack, and you have to be an Australian person or a New Zealand citizen. All right, guys, we have a winner. Are you ready? I don't think this person is in the room, but we can congratulate him when he comes back. It's Suhas. Yay. Oh, okay. Yay, you're the winner. So you just have to give Susie your email address. Susie, please raise your hand. And she'll send out the voucher for you. So the winner, so the first female software engineer was Margaret Hamilton. Next question. $50 vouchers, guys. You got to be in it to win it. All right, guys, we got a winner. Are you ready? And the winner is Nicole. She's online. Oh, cool. Congrats, Nicole. You've won a voucher. So make sure you send Susie your email address. So the answer was calculated the highest factor integer. And the next question, question number 3. Come on, guys. All right, we've got a winner. It's Charlene. Oh, it's you. Oh my God. Do you want to do a speech? We've got Charlene as our winner. Just make sure you send Susie the email. And that's the answer, guys. All right, guys. All right, guys, are you ready? So what Susie's gonna do is spin the wheel, and if you're currently here or online, your name is automatically in, and you win a gift pack. You have to be in Australia or in New Zealand to participate. All right, Susie, are you ready?
Hello. 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 Yeah, come on, look at the screen. Who knows your name will be the next lucky name? You will win a gift bag with all the 5 items. So, a wireless charger, a diary, a coloring book, and a sling bag. Don't you want it? Come on. Anything? Okay, so this pin of wheel, no, the name.
Spin the wheel.
Spin the wheel. Okay. If we choose you, if you are lucky, if you have been good, behaving well the whole day, you will be the lucky winner. Come on.
And our winner is Pete. Yay! Congrats! Did you want to do a speech, Pete? Wait.
Thanks a lot to everybody here who came to support GDG. If anyone's looking for a job, please speak with Michael Vescovo down the back there. He's recruiting. Thank you.
All right, guys.
Okay, so now we will come to the second name. Who has been behaving well? Let's see.
Congrats to Nicole. Yay! Yeah, she's very lucky. Oh my God. I wish I had her luck. Everyone take a seat, please. All right, everyone. Our next speaker is Bettina. And please give Bettina a round of applause.
Hi, everyone. Lovely to be here tonight. I'm actually coming in from Sydney, so I wish I was in Melbourne, but not to be this time, but looking forward to my next trip to Melbourne, that's for sure. Really pleased and honoured to be talking to you tonight, and I'm hoping that something about my session on wellbeing will help inspire you to take that extra care of yourself. And so if we could go to the next slide, that would be fantastic. Well-being, what is well-being? It's talked about a lot, but what is it? I like this quote from the Black Dog Institute. Well-being is a heightened state that's beyond just feeling happy or having good health. It's a condition of flourishing where we thrive in many aspects of our lives. I'm not a healthcare expert, so I'm really speaking to you from my personal experience. I'm now in my 3rd decade as an IT professional, and I'm really proud to be an IT professional. But those decades have met lots of different changes. In 2000, everybody thought all the IT systems were going to stop and there'd be no job. And after we kept things moving, we were told there wasn't going to be any IT jobs. But look, there's more jobs than ever. So but it's changing, and therefore it's really important to look after your well-being. If you are well mentally, physically, and spiritually, then I truly believe that you can be the best that you can be, not only for yourself, but for yourself professionally and yourself personally, and also for others. If you're better able to help others if you're in a good place yourself. Could you please go to the next slide? Throughout our professional and personal lives, our well-being is continually being challenged. It's being challenged by external forces. Pandemic is the obvious one. For me, there's been work-wise a couple of economic recessions. The jobs, as I've just mentioned, keep changing, especially in technology, which is exciting, but it's also harrowing sometimes. So you need to adopt your well-being. Also, where you are in life is changing. For some people, they're coming out of school, first job, new job. You could be starting a family, you could be going for a promotion. There's constant change in your life, which means you constantly need to reevaluate yourself and your well-being. For me at the moment, 2 things are really on top of my mind. Obviously, how to deal with post-pandemic life. The second thing is, in January, I started a new job with a new organisation. I spent the first 2 months in lockdown in a new organisation, trying to figure out how to do my job and how to meet people and connect with people and network in my new organisation. So that meant that I had to also refocus on my well-being and my strategies for well-being. Could you please go to the next slide? Here are my key well-being strategies, and they are reflect, regroup, recuperate, connect, and move. Reflect. Reflect is basically goal setting. Goal setting helps you to find direction and to measure yourself in terms of the direction you thought you were going to head, or to change that direction as things change. I'd really like to share with you what my goals were when I was 17. I didn't call them goals then. I probably just sort of said, this is what I want out of life. And some of them are pretty basic. I wanted to have good friends, lifelong friends. I wanted to travel. I wanted to go to university. And I wanted to be financially independent. And those things have still shaped my life throughout. Financial independence was something that was really important to me because to me, is a basic in terms of well-being. If you're financially independent, you have more choices. But also I spent time in my school years living in mining towns, and I saw that some of my mother's friends didn't have the ability to be financial independent, which means they didn't have the ability to make choices. And I saw it really impacting their well-being. So that's been very important for me. University was really important for me. And it was something that my dad really encouraged me to do, but it also set expectations. It wasn't the easiest journey for me. If you've seen in my bio, you'll note that I came from an un-English speaking country, migrated to Australia with my family when I was 9. I didn't learn to speak English until I was 10. And I didn't really learn to speak good English until well after that. And it really actually started when my mum bought me a book, a female adventure book. And I started to really love reading, which really helped my schoolwork and meant that I was able to qualify to go to university. And then I had to work through with my family how to afford that. So that was a particularly strong, goal for me, also because I was the first one in my extended family to go to university. So learning to speak English late and being the first in the family to go to university was really quite a significant goal. So it was something I was pretty proud about. And those goals obviously have changed over time, but those goals have really set the foundation of my life and also my well-being. The next one I want to talk about is about regrouping and recouping. This is about me time. I think it's really important that we take time out to be ourselves, to regroup or recoup. Often people speak about being an extrovert or an introvert. An introvert doesn't mean you're shy, but normally an introvert is somebody who actually needs to regroup by themselves a little bit more than an extrovert who might actually relax more by going to parties. It's really important to work through where you are with that at the moment. Normally, regrouping happens at home, but with the pandemic, being at home hasn't been alone for a lot of people because there's been family members at home constantly. And if you've been locked down and you're only able to go out 1 hour a day, it's been really hard to get that alone time. So I'd really encourage you to think about, do I have enough of the me time? The next one I want to talk to you about is the connect, which might even seem like the opposite, which is actually about connecting with friends, connecting with colleagues, which is also really important. It's really important because we are human beings, we are social beings, and we need to feel that we belong. So I really encourage you, especially post-pandemic, get out and connect. One of the things I'm doing at the moment is really taking every opportunity I can to visit as many friends and families as I can. And that means actually traveling interstate because I'm the only one of my family, apart from my husband and so forth, but my extended family who lives in Sydney. So it's really important. So connecting is really important, but also having me time is really important. And the balance will depend on you as a person and will depend on where you are in your personal circumstances, and might also depend on this post-pandemic. The other thing I'd say is if you are in a situation where you're doing hybrid working, as in part-time working at home, some days working in the office, I really encourage you to go into the office and reconnect with your people and reconnect with your colleagues. A number of my best friends, quite a few of my best friends, I met through work. And it's the pleasure of having the professional connections as well as the personal connections at work is really great. And it's really important when you think about how many hours a week you spend working and how many years of your life you're going to spend working. So I really do encourage that and give a bit of a plug for the office. The final one I want to talk about is move, which is pretty obvious, right? It's physical well-being. And, this can be light or it can be heavy. It can be going for walks. It can be dancing in the kitchen, in the living room. It can be that you're a serious athlete, but your physical well-being is really, really important. And one of the things that I've learned is that as you get older, it becomes even more important. I like to walk, and I actually like to walk. It helps me in terms of problem solving and stuff. When I walk, I think about things and I reflect, and it gives me a different view to when I'm sitting at my desk working. It gives me a broader view as well as getting some fresh air. The other thing I like to do is reformer Pilates. That's great for a different reason, because I don't think I have an instructor and I'm busy being in that moment. So you can use exercise, one, to keep you physically fit, but it also helps you with your mental well-being. This is by no means an exhaustive list. And I haven't spoken about mindfulness or spirituality and all of that stuff. And that may be something that's really important for you in your aspect as well-being. So I encourage you to think about that as well. But my message here today is really simple. Well-being is really, really critical to yourself. It is something you need to continually work at, but it's so rewarding. And I wish you a happy and fulfilled and prosperous life. And, you know, well-being is about keep growing. It's about progression, not perfection. Thanks,
Thank you so
everyone.
much,
And if you have any
Bettina.
questions.
Did anyone have any questions for Bettina? Anybody? No? Oh, coming. There's a question.
Hi, Bettina. I'm Jane. I'm from NAB as well.
Hi.
Hi, my question is, when you went to university, did you study something technical or did you study something different? And how did you get into tech?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. So I actually have 2 degrees. The first degree I did out of uni was actually a business degree, industrial relations. When I was doing industrial relations, I got interested in law. So when I was working, I did a law degree, majoring in constitutional law of all things. So nothing to do with technology. But when I was studying law, I joined another bank and I started working with that. And that technology teams decided that they actually needed people who understood the business. So I started as a business analyst. And I worked as a business analyst and a project manager. And then an IT company actually came and headhunted me. And I remember going up to one of my IT colleagues and saying, do you think I could work for an IT company? And they said, yes, sure. And then I took the plunge and have worked fully in IT. But to some of these questions earlier, I think, you know, most of our organizations have IT departments. So if you're thinking about, you know, moving into technology, I would suggest you actually talk and connect with somebody in their technology department, because often there is those jobs that actually have to do the coordination between the business and technology. So if you've already got the expertise in your business, often technology will look at that really, really favorably.
Thank you so much, Bettina. And everyone just give her another round of applause, please. All right. And so we've got our next speaker, Gwenny. So we're just going to set things up. Just give us 2 minutes.
Hi, everybody. How you going? I thought that's good. I just thought I'd ask before we start, because I know there's quite a few people interested in career changing. Who is familiar with DevOps, and is using DevOps at the moment? Great, thank you. So we'll have about half. And who's familiar with SRE, like site reliability engineering, and using it a bit less? So feel free to ask questions. I've kind of probably put a little bit too much in here, but we'll see how we go. So my name's Gwenny. My bio was a little wrong. I've actually just left the place I was at, which was the Google Cloud Consultancy. I'm now at Xero. I'm a principal engineer, like DevOps coach. So I've been there for 3 weeks, been in the new job mode. But I am a career changer into tech. So completely non-technical background, as you can see from the pictures. Did a lot of like sport and music growing up. My first degree out of high school was classical music, classical double bass. I learned then to teach English, went into teaching, academic support, and eventually curriculum writing. So I wrote like the course books and the lessons. So most of my background is like education and music, absolutely not technical at all. The guys in my band laughed at me when I told them I was learning programming. But that's fine. I got the last laugh. I eventually changed into tech because a couple of reasons. Number one, I was volunteering for Girls in Tech. They're like a global nonprofit. They have events here if any of you are interested that are quite good. I knew about the diversity crisis and I just thought, well, I want to help with that even if I'm not technical yet. Things like women and children are more likely to die in car accidents because airbags were designed with an average male skeleton, for example. Things that we probably all know of, like the soap dispensers not working on darker skin, car voice systems not working, not responding to women's voices because they were only trained on men's voices. So I kind of knew about that and I was like, oh, this is bad. Like I want to really help. And so I got into it, heard a lot of women saying, you can do this too. And ended up kind of snapping one day when I was having to write like for curriculum in a learning management system, and software engineers had designed the learning activities, just completely ignoring like 60 years of research into how people learn. And I got so pissed off about it. I was like, I've had it, like I'm learning how to do this, even if I literally didn't even know what like the internet was or like how it worked. So I asked a lot of stupid questions, but I was like, whatever, I'm going to find out how to do it. I'm going to do it. And I ended up doing a web development boot camp for 6 months. So any of you as well interested, like I talk a lot to people about that. So feel free to contact me on LinkedIn and we can chat. It is absolutely possible. All tech skills are learnable. So I really encourage you to, like, if you're interested, it's such a great industry to be in. Yeah, so I did 6-month web development bootcamp and then moved straight into DevOps and cloud. And that's where I've been since then. What was it like career changing into tech? Just because that informs my perspective on what I'm saying today. One word, like just brutal. I was like depressed the whole time. I cried every day in boot camp. Like people didn't even notice. I don't know if that was worse. I just be at my desk, like tears running down my face. It was extremely stressful because people were always telling me to read the docs. And I love reading and I love following rules. The docs don't make sense if you're a beginner and they're usually poorly written. So I was just constantly like, are they joking? Like, is this like a mean trick? And there's often one example, you know, rather than 3 or 4 of how to use code. That was also something I really struggled with. I don't identify as neurotypical. So like things don't make sense to me unless they're like very literal. I also didn't identify with a lot of the people in my class. They kind of had these similar interests. A lot of the guys had been programming or like tinkering with computers for a really long time. I, as you heard, like was not technical at all. I wasn't into like gaming. A lot of people were into like Dungeons and Dragons and like Star Wars. I didn't, like they're fine, but like I don't really know about them. So I was like, am I like the only person that likes things to look pretty? For example, like a lot of the interfaces, like in Stack Overflow, where you're meant to look up things, like that's just people's opinions. And I was just like, I cannot deal with this. It was really frustrating. And probably the other biggest issue for me was having people, and coming from the education background again, a lot of the people who were meant to be teaching or mentoring or coaching didn't have that skill set or hadn't developed that skill set. And probably a lot of you in tech have experienced that too. I think it's a really big problem in the industry. So the people teaching us were good at programming, but were often not that great at educating or creating a learning experience where I could even show up and feel like it was a safe space to learn. So I thought about tonight what could be something useful. I knew there'd be people with a mix of areas, and I thought I would share with you what we could all probably apply to like our current roles, our current workplaces more consciously from the spaces of DevOps and SRE. Let me just check my timer. Oh yeah, 10 minutes. So DevOps, for the people that aren't familiar with it, is we can think of it as like the bridge between development and operations. This was also something when I moved into tech, I was like, what are they talking about? Like, of course, if you build it, you would run it. Why wouldn't you? And then I learned that it wasn't like that, and that traditionally people would work on the program and then, you know, hand it over to potentially a different company to run it, so to do the ops side. But DevOps is also about attitudes and mindsets and beliefs. So you'll see lots of different frameworks and examples of these. So there's always a focus on like measuring, on monitoring what you're doing, on how to continuously improve, on how to have a culture where people feel that they can contribute in a way that will improve, and a culture of learning as well, like learning and growing. Probably the most well-known visual, or the one you'll see the most if you Google DevOps, is the little infinity or 8, showing that connection between you know, writing code and then actually deploying code in whatever environment it is, and then getting constant feedback from that environment to improve what you're doing. So continuously integrating code into a code base, continuously delivering features, continuously deploying your software, and ultimately continuously improving that. One of the models that is popular is the CAMS model, and that stands for Culture, Automation, Measurement, and Sharing. And you'll also see it with a little lean management, an earlier kind of model that a lot of agile methods are from, and continuous delivery, that's often just kind of stuck in there. But I thought of some questions for us all to think about. So for culture, and this was another thing I struggled with a bit, is your culture inclusive? Like, are things psychologically safe? Are you personally an active ally to underrepresented groups in the industry? Have you educated yourself on what inequalities and barriers there are for others who aren't like you, whether that's neurotypical or a different age, different background, different culture, very often in tech, a different gender? Without inclusion, and not just diversity, you're not getting all the information you need to make software development and that life cycle better. You aren't getting all the data you need to make a workplace a safe place to be and an effective place to be, which is what DevOps is always going for. With automation, does automating offer demonstrable business value? I think if we are technical, we love to be able to automate, or DevOps people do anyway, to write a script for something. But then have you written a script that no one else can understand, that's not maintainable down the line? Or have you made yourself irreplaceable and you're now having to field these questions across the whole workplace from people that you don't want to be answering because you decided to write this script and no one else knows how to use it? And also with observability. So there's a big focus on observability now, particularly with SRE. So looking at the outputs we're getting out of our systems so that we can debug them and we can make sure that they're working. Is it able to drive precise automation? Do you have like clear priorities and what you should automate first and why, and what the business value is? How is your operational maturity? Do you know like the life cycle of your products or like your processes and when they need to be reevaluated? Do you have a really good way of tracking that? Do you have strong foundations? So where I've, I shouldn't put my workplace into question, but where I've worked in the past is I think there's people talking a lot about DevOps, and I'm like, oh, this sounds awesome. And it always is about improving things, which is like what I'm on board with, and about empowering people. But then it's like, well, if you don't have a team that has clear ways of working that they've all agreed on and everyone is feeling good about that, you can't then talk about observability or how you're going to do that and have a robust discussion and get a good solution. So you have to have those foundations before you're looking at going straight to continuous delivery. In terms of measurement, so like logging and metrics, maybe alerts and traces, are they meaningful to your business and end users? Are you able to get actionable insights from them? So maybe you've got a really great dashboard, but are you actually able to use that dashboard to tell you what your next pieces of work should look like and what's going to be most valuable? Do you have a sustainable way of reviewing them? Do you have that even in your schedules? And in terms of sharing, this was a big one for me because I used to constantly get books recommended to me by this friend who was an engineer who also indoctrinated me into the Star Trek culture, which then I felt slightly more included into. But whose voices are you amplifying? So he used to send me stuff all the time. He was someone that loved recommending stuff. He was a senior DevOps engineer, but it was always the same voices. It was always these kind of people from the same background, like white, middle class, cisgender, able-bodied, probably British. And that's not like common, but it was just he loved like the audiobooks narrated by the British authors. And it was always, their opinions about something. And I'm like, dude, what about like a book from, I actually asked, do you read a book or a perspective from anyone other than these kind of people? It's like, that's not who I'm wanting to invest my time and energy in. That's already the predominant voice that I read every day in every document, on every page. And it doesn't make me feel included. And it doesn't make me feel like the industry is making progress as well. Not that those voices aren't valuable, but I do think we have to start being more conscious about the voices we're choosing to amplify. And as an example of number one, the inclusive culture, like this is my favorite graph about barriers women face. I've had so many men ask me, not just men, but no, probably just men, ask me why, because I did an internship where they only hired women. And so some of the men were like, well, why, what if I want my son to apply? And I'm like, cool, but your son's not facing all of these barriers. Like, yeah, he's important. He's an important person, but he doesn't face barriers from the age of 3 to even do this job. I was 35 before I realized maybe a tech job was an option for me because I literally hadn't thought of it. I was like, no, I could never be technical. So it's, I think, good for us to be aware of these things. And then this is, probably easier, not probably, definitely easier for a white woman. So for women of color, Indigenous women, the barriers are greater, and the barriers to entry and to staying in the industry are a lot greater. If we move on to site reliability engineering, the latest hot topic, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, probably the best resource is Google's SRE. So Google came up with site reliability engineering. It's really about, it's like engineering at a huge scale and how you can run and maintain systems with practices that allow something to stay running, even when, there's millions of like hits per second, for example. SRE.Google is their site. I also don't work for Google or anything, and I'm a Google developer expert, but they don't make us like recommend them. I just love how they talk about these kind of topics, and I love that they pioneered this, and it's very well explained. And those books are freely available if you read them online, if you haven't read them yet. And they've got a lot of other great resources. So they have a bunch of principles in SRE, like no more silos, because teams often end up working in, separate areas, and then there's works duplicated. I'm sure that's not unique to tech, but it happens in tech a lot. There's an attitude where we want to accept accidents. So for example, Google have, I know one of their products, they intentionally shut it down sometimes to make sure that they are able to cope with failure. Change to be gradual. So they're knowing that an organizational change can't happen overnight and it's unrealistic to do that. And then tooling and culture being interrelated. So the questions I kind of see as an issue, like a lot, are people breaking down silos actively? Because all the places I've worked have silos everywhere and no one seems to be actively dismantling them, a small amount of people, but they can be dismantled. And also, do you know your critical user journey? So that is with whatever your product or service is, maybe it's an internal, product that only engineers use. Your critical user journey is actually, like if you don't know that and you don't know the business value of your SLOs, so your service level objectives, which is another SRE kind of key concept, then we've taken something out of context in SRE and we're losing the kind of value and the meaning of it. So your critical user journey is, what is someone doing to use your service? What are all the touch points that they have to go through? And where can we make that experience better? Do you have error budgets in SLOs? So our service level objectives. For example, a goal with like a measurement like 99% averaged over a minute of your GET requests are successfully met or something. Are they working for you? Oh God, sorry. I put a timer on, otherwise I just keep talking. Are they tied directly to business value? Because as I said before, I think, so the place I've started at, they're amazing, but engineers make up the SLOs, which is not how it should be. It's meant to come down from product owners because it's meant to be tied directly to business value, which comes from the business side, not necessarily the technical side of the business. Oh, sorry, I just like hit something as well. But yeah, I've just walked in there and I'm like, I don't know how many questions I can ask about how they're doing this. But the place I worked at previously as well, they weren't even in a mature state to have error budgets and SLOs. And that's okay. So it's like, are you doing something little? I heard Corey Quinn, who's this, if you don't follow him on Twitter, he's hilarious. He is always shit talking AWS. He was talking about observability, but that a 1% change is like a good amount to aim for. Like, can you change something just 1%? And how are you supporting change so that it is sustainable? It is something you can keep working towards and people aren't getting demoralized. Because again, a lot of the places I've worked, the engineers have kind of given up trying to improve things because they're like, no, it won't get approved, or there's so many processes, or like, oh, the security group's still looking at it and it's been like 3 weeks or whatever. But there's got to be a way, there's a sustainable way that we can find together. And also, do you have a sustainable way in terms of tooling and culture? Do you have that culture where tooling decisions and the operational lifecycle of tools and services is something everyone's on board with and everyone's feeling good about? It's not just like you can choose a tool and you can just get it in and get approval. And then, like I was saying before, someone has to manage that, but they leave the company and then no one else knows anything about that tool, for example. Oh, I didn't have anything else other than that. Cool, Gwenny. Cool pass, Gwenny. Great.
Thank you, Gwenny.
Yeah, so thank you. Normally there'd be some kind of conclusion. Forget about that. Any questions? Oh, there's one at the front. Thank you for staying out on your whatever night it is as well.
Hi, I'm Sam. I
Hello.
actually have 2 questions, if that's okay.
Yes.
So my first question is, how can I be an ally for females in engineering, kind of like day to day, or even, I guess, more than going to something like this, just because, so I worked at 4 engineering companies and I've been the only female engineer at all of the places. So I guess there's not good representation in my experience, but yeah, so that was the first question. How can I kind of advocate and be supportive of that? And my second question was, if you did a web dev boot camp, how did you get into DevOps or being a cloud engineer? Because I know it's quite different. So I just wanted to know how that process happened. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll answer the second question first. That like comes into my brain quickly. Firstly, if anyone is remotely interested in cloud, get into it. It's the best. It's great. The way I got into it was, firstly, I was going to events like this all through the web boot camp because I wanted to really understand all of the different jobs that were out there. In my kind of mind, I wanted to be a machine learning engineer long term. But as I got to know more about just all the different options, I was like, yeah, DevOps is like, that sounds much better. Because I was in this boot camp where the culture was pretty toxic. And I knew that DevOps was more about sharing, collaborating, sharing knowledge with people, improving, lifting each other up, having, for something like SRE, there's always blameless postmortems. So it's always a culture of improving and, you know, sharing things as a team, sharing the negatives and the good as a team, which much more aligned with like my personality sort of thing. And also I didn't understand why I was like writing a line of code in an application, like in some random file, which I was like, I don't even know how these files are connected. And then I was like, well, where are they going? Like, what are they talking to? And if I'm writing something in this file, who cares about the code if like it's, you know, it's organized in a way that's not going to be effective. Like I was kind of more interested in learning how the whole system worked together, because I was like, I could write amazing code and then it's, you know, being run in a really impractical way, which often it is. So yeah, I just wanted to learn more about that. And then I went into it and I just have loved it since, and I'm happy to do it. I love programming too, but yeah, I really recommend cloud if anyone's like open to it. Great field, also higher salaries than software development. Yeah, I think those are the main things that kind of made me interested. Oh, and I also, one other thing, I liked the idea of having a higher impact. Like I thought, okay, I can be working on like my little part of the code, or for example, my last role was working with the foundational code at one of the big 4. So it was every person in the bank who used a GCP project. Like that was the code base we were working with. And we were working on, you know, hundreds of pipelines for every single person's code across the bank. So that to me was also really appealing, that you could have a really big impact and improve like lots and lots of developers' experience, not just like the people I'm writing code with sort of thing. But yeah, it depends what you like as well. There's, you know, there's lots of things to love about all areas of tech, and there's an area for everyone, for those of you that are considering joining. In terms of the first question, I would say like for us as white or white passing women, I don't know if you're going to be an ally, like you are a woman, but I think it's important for us to be allies to women of color and Black women, Indigenous women who are facing a lot more shit than us, like every day. I swear, that's going to happen. So I think it's important to follow diverse voices on, for example, on Twitter or whatever social media. Really educate yourself. I follow a lot of like trans, Black, disabled activists, and I've learned so much, like literally just from Twitter, about inclusion and diversity more than anywhere else. Oh, sorry, and LinkedIn. So I think it's about educating ourselves, using our privilege to uplift others who don't have that same privilege, and connecting other people in that community around that cause. So I know a lot of the guys I work with feel, you know, have seen Women Who Code and they're like, I don't know if I can come along to that. I'm one of the directors of Women Who Code Melbourne, who's another meetup group. And yeah, I think it's good as well to just share about things and make men feel welcome to come along, because we, and non-binary people who I think often get excluded from that kind of narrative as well around women in technology. So yeah, I think it's educating, using your privilege, and also doing things that you need to do to kind of lift yourself up, because you do face a lot of microaggressions and a lot of like shitty experiences, you know? So like whatever you've got to do to look after yourself, do it, and find the people that also give you that support. I would add as well, find a workplace that supports you. So I went into tech expecting to experience a lot of microaggressions and a lot of negative experiences. What I experienced was the total opposite. So I had all the men in my team taking me aside saying, hey, just make sure you're not doing too much of this glue work. Make sure you're not getting labeled as non-technical, because I write ridiculously fast notes. So I was always taking notes in meetings, and it made me feel like I could contribute when I was like new and I couldn't do the programming as well. But a lot of them were like, no, let us share the load. Don't get pigeonholed. We want to make sure you're on the technical work that you want to be doing to build your skills. I had guys ask me if I needed a mentor. So yeah, I think choosing your workplace and culture also means that you're working with people who are wanting to see you and other people succeed. Just made a huge difference, like, to my life. And at the place I just started as well, like I've had all men in my team, but they've been giving me just all the kind of hidden information that I need. So one of them had like an informal chat with someone that's going to be my like team that I work with. And he was like, look, it was just drinks. We were talking for an hour, but let me fill you in on what he was saying, so you're kind of aware of it. So things like that make a really big difference as well. And that's something we can all do for each other as well. Those informal social ties are often what women are excluded from. So it's really great if, for the men here, if you can kind of extend that hand, that's really amazing. Yeah, does that answer your question? It's a long answer.
Does anyone have any more questions? Anyone? All right, can everyone give Winnie applause again?
Thank you very much.
That was really, really good. All right, so we are going to wrap up, but we were wondering if you could kindly give us feedback. There's the QR code there. If you could all please do that, you'll be in the draw to win prizes, more prizes again. So that would be really good. And you can also join us on Slack if you haven't, and we'll just wrap up from here, and you can feel free to network. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask me or anyone. That's okay. Thanks, guys.